Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zithy here, and I am back at it again to drop part 2 for what if Deku had ultra ego. Now guys, on the first part, you guys absolutely demolished the like button. You guys Texas smashed it all the way. So if you guys want to get part 3 of this amazing video after this one is over, then please make sure to go down below and smash the like button again, seeing as this video, the like goal is going to be 500 likes. Okay, before I get started, I do have to say a couple of things. Number one, y'all was really bugging, bro. Y'all was really bugging in the comment section talking about some, why is Deku so weak sauce? Yo, Xander, why'd you make him so weak? And then there was other people in the back like, I like this what if. And then everybody who didn't like it was like, yo, he likes the what if, kill that kid. You know, people were going crazy. And it's like, bro, I'm trying to actually have a story this time. You know what I mean? I'm trying to actually give you guys some quality content. But y'all decided that y'all want OP Deku. So as I always am, I'm gonna deliver that to you guys. So in this part, we're gonna be covering a little bit more story-based stuff, and towards the end of it is when stuff is going to get extremely lit. That being said though, guys, if you guys are hyped for the what if, then please make sure to go down below, smash that like button, as well as subscribe if you haven't already, seeing as over 50% of the people who watch my channel aren't subscribed, which is insane to think about, because it's like, if 50% of y'all actually subscribe to me, I would have 48,000 subscribers, I believe it is. Not too sure. Around there, right? That being said, though, yeah, this video is sponsored, so a little bit on that later on. And with that being said, we might as well just get right into the what if. Alright, so we pick off the story right where it left off. Aizawa would pretty much turn towards Deku's direction as he would proceed to essentially walk him over to Principal Nezu's office. This is when Deku would look towards Aizawa and Nezu, as Nezu would just be sitting on the desk, you know, kind of looking at his papers, as he would look up at Deku and be like, huh, it's Izuku Midoriya, as he would then say, pleasure to meet you. This is when Deku would pretty much sit down, as Nezu would just look at him and say, alright, Aizawa, now, I know you want to expel this boy. I saw the entire situation. However, before you do, we should have a talk with him. This is when Aizawa would look at Nezu and just be like, what kind of sock? As he would just be like giving Nezu a weird stare, because like, known to his knowledge, he was actually allowed to expel kids. And it's not like Aizawa was actually going to be like expelling people, because if you guys are caught up to the anime, which I'm pretty sure many of you guys are, seeing as the new season of My Hero has been out for quite some time now. Excuse me, sorry about that. But seeing as the new season of My Hero has been out for quite a while, I'm guessing a lot of you guys have probably seen the new content and seen how Aizawa doesn't actually expel people like downright. He doesn't exactly just expel them and they, you know, lose all their hopes and chances of becoming a UA student or a pro hero in the future. Instead, what he does is pretty much just give them that fear so that they can pretty much work harder and be better. And so that's pretty much what Aizawa was trying to do with Deku, but Nezu actually stopped him. This is when Nezu would ask Aizawa to pretty much just step outside, as Deku would look towards Nezu and Nezu would just be like, want some tea? Deku would be like, yes please, as you know, he would nod his head, and Nezu would look at Deku. He would say, you have quite an interesting quirk, Izuku. This is when Deku would look towards Nezu, as he would say, but what do you mean by that? As Nezu would just go on to explain to Deku that by interesting, he means that it seems as if his quirk isn't made for him. It seems as if that quirk wasn't made for the type of personality or the person that he is. It's strange. But from what Nezu's been able to pick up, it feels as if Deku can only tap into it when he accesses a certain amount of rage or bloodlust or animalistic instincts. As Deku would look at Aizawa and say, yeah, you're right on the money. Nezu would be like, oh, good, great. As Deku would say, but how do you know that? Deku would then basically be told by Nezu that he was experimented on by a bunch of humans, and so now he's just super smart. And Deku would be like, oh, well, sorry for on behalf of my people. As Nezu would say, don't worry, I got over it. As he would pretty much just proceed to turn over to Deku and just be like, alright, so, look. He would just be like, you just don't seem as if you're suited for the quirk that you have. But the quirk that you have is something so powerful. It seems as if what you showed the other day in the entrance exam wasn't even a fraction of what your powers can do. It seemed as if you were holding back when you destroyed the 0 pointer. What stopped you? Why did you hold back? Deku would look at Nezu as he would say, I don't know. And Nezu would then look at him and say, it's fear. As Deku would look at Nezu, he would say, fear? Nezu would then begin to explain to Deku that he's afraid of what his quirk can do. Deku would say he's not afraid, he's happy. As Nezu would say, well, you can lie to me as much as you want, but the heart will always show your true colors. And he would then basically stand on his desk as he would put his paw on Deku's heart and just be like, this right here cannot lie. As he would pretty much look towards Deku and say, your ability isn't something meant to be looked at as a curse. It isn't something that you should look at and be afraid of. Don't be afraid of the power. You have to master it, hone it, make it something that isn't destruction. Deku, after hearing those words, would think about it and then realize that maybe he doesn't have to think about his quirk as a state of anger or something like that. Maybe, just maybe, it can be a state of simply just getting stronger. As Deku would look at Nezu, he would say, I understand. Nezu would look towards Deku and say, perfect. So, we on the same terms? Deku would say, totally. As it's at this point that Deku would pretty much just end up leaving Nezu's office, and Aizawa would be told by Nezu that, he's not going to get expelled. Aizawa would then pretty much go back to the classroom as, everybody went home, and Deku ends up going home by himself. He ends up walking, taking a train, and he doesn't see any of his fellow students until the next day. Now, when Deku walks in, everybody would look at him just being like, but weren't you expelled? As a bunch of them would be like, oh, wow, he didn't get expelled. He would say, the teacher must have had second thoughts, right? As Deku would look at them all and say that, no, it's something else. They would ask what happened, and Deku would say that Principal Nezu sees potential in me. As everybody would be like, whoa, the principal? That's awesome, dude. Ida would look at Deku and say, I mean, it only makes sense. You were holding back, right? And Deku would say, not necessarily. This is when Bakugo, overhearing all this stuff, would just be like, you damn Deku, what do you mean holding back? He's just a quirkless bastard. Everybody would look at Bakugo and just be like, what are you talking about? As Bakugo would go on to explain that for as long as he's known him, Deku doesn't even have a quirk. And everybody would go on to explain that Deku destroyed, completely annihilated a 0-point robot with nothing but one punch. As Bakugo would just look at them and be like, He would then look towards Deku as he would direct his attention at him and then say, Deku, you've been hiding this power from me, haven't you? As he would rush at Deku and just begin to be like, how dare you? But before he even gets to throw the explosion that he was about to throw, Aizawa would cancel Bakugo's quirk and pull him in with a scarf as he would say, listen, you pull that again, I'll expel you. As Bakugo would just kind of be like, ugh, and end up walking off. After this, all of them would then get to their final period of the day, which is combat training for heroes and all that stuff. This is where All Might would bust in the classroom being like, I am here, walking in like a normal person, just being All Might, you know what I mean? And then he would proceed to tell them that the clothes make the pros, you know what I mean? Everybody get dressed into your hero suits, we're going to be having a little event. Everybody would be like, are we going to get expelled? And then All Might would just be like, no, that's just Aizawa. As he would just say, you don't have to worry about expulsion anymore unless you do anything bad. As everybody would have a sigh of relief, everybody would get changed, and Deku would go outside with his costume. Now, Deku would basically be out there and pretty much just be wearing a Goku black robe. Pretty much the same exact Goku black outfit, just the colors are a little bit darker, and it has purple on the back instead of green. Because Deku thought ahead. See, what if he ever uses transformation? You know what I mean? He's not exactly going to have green hair, so it'd be weird. So he ended up making the gi symbol be like a purplish tint. That being said, though, this is when all the teams would pretty much get picked. Now, as for Deku, he's still going to be participating in the same team, meaning Uraraka and Deku versus Bakugo and Ida. Also, guys, if you guys hear my chair squeaking a lot, I do apologize for that. I can't really help it sometimes. Sometimes the chair just kind of has a mind of its own, like right there. I didn't even mean to make it squeak, but it just be doing that for no reason sometimes. All right, no, that's beside the point, though. All right, guys, so yeah, Deku pretty much proceeds to go over with Uraraka, and when it comes to Bakugo, Deku isn't scared. Deku knows that he has the power to handle Bakugo. He just needs to master it, and all he needs is some time. Last night, Deku was definitely practicing Ultra Ego, and so far, Deku's only able to activate it for a split second. That's all Deku gets. But for some reason, Deku needs to be in a sort of like tranquil yet like ready state, like in a sort of like a state of like how would I explain it? Like, have you guys thought about Beerus? How Beerus isn't necessarily evil. He just knows what he has to do. Because Beerus, while yes, he is a god of destruction, he doesn't destroy and feel bad about it because destruction is just that. Destruction. It's what he has to do. Deku feels that that's kind of the state of mind that he needs to be in when he uses this form. In a sort of nonchalant, as well as acknowledging what he's doing type state, I guess you could say. That being said, Deku would go over with Uraraka inside of the bomb room and all that stuff, and no, not the room, but the building, as you know, they would pretty much proceed to go in there. Now, this is when the encounter with Bakugo is pretty much going to go almost identical to canon. Except, actually, yeah, almost identical to canon up until Bakugo goes, Deku! And, you know, he just starts shooting explosions, you know what I mean? And he appears around the corners. Uraraka's out of there. He would throw a big giant right hook. Deku would dodge it and pretty much proceed to kick Bakugo straight in the gut, sending him flying into the wall. Bakugo would get back up as he would say, you damn nerd! He would get up and shoot an explosion right at Deku, to which Deku would begin to run away. And Bakugo would be like, hey, get back here! Show me that awesome power of yours! As it's at this point that Deku would just be running away, just thinking that he needs to access it now if he's ever going to beat Bakugo. Just once, that's all Deku wants, just to beat him one time. Deku would have one goal in mind, beat Bakugo. Not destroy him, but beat him. This is when Deku would kind of just continue running as Bakugo would look over towards Deku's direction, finding him as he would throw a giant explosion at him. Now Deku would put both of his arms in front of his face, pretty much tanking it. And Deku would then rush over to Bakugo as Bakugo would just be like, Deku! Deku would then look at Bakugo as he would say, Gachan! And both of them would throw a hit. For an instant, Deku would tap into Ultra Ego as, you know, both of them would throw a punch and it would be something kind of similar to what they did in canon. However, in this version, Deku isn't able to even throw the punch with the energy within him. It goes away the second that Deku thinks that it might be too dangerous for Bakugo. Deku lost his concentration. This is when he would pretty much end up punching him with a normal fist, and Bakugo with his strong explosion would end up sending Deku crashing into the wall, pretty much getting sent flying out of there. As Deku would land and the match would immediately be halted because Deku just got knocked the F out. Now some of you guys are like, bro, Deku's weak sauce, but trust boys, trust. Just give me a minute, alright? Just give your boy a minute. That being said, this is when Deku would pretty much proceed to get healed up by Recovery Girl, as he would pretty much end up being absent for the next 2 days of UA. By the way, boys, I meant to say classes, not UA, but yeah, that being said, this is when Deku would pretty much return to classes about 2 days later, as Bakugo just has a cocky smirk on his face the second he sees Deku, and Deku will just give Bakugo an angry look. Now, it's on this day that they actually are going to be having the USJ attack. And all of them would get on the bus. They make their way there. Ida tells them all to get off because he's still going to be class president. Or class rep, sorry. And this is when all of them would get off as they would begin to hear the speech coming from 13. Now details such as boring ones, I'm kind of just going to graze over because nobody really cares about that stuff. And so, yeah, they get to the USJ. And this is when Deku would pretty much just proceed to walk over towards the front of the people. Now, when Deku was there, Deku would kind of just be sitting there until randomly a purple mist would appear, swirling in as a bunch of other little hints of mist would appear as well. This is when a bunch of villains would arrive on the scene, and Deku realizing this would be like, oh, so we have prop villains? Aizawa would jump in front of the kids as he would pretty much say, these are not props, as everybody would kind of just proceed to be like, alright, these are the real thing. As everybody would get on guard and Bakugo and Kirishima would rush at Kurogiri, still going through him just like they do in canon, and Deku would still be teleported over to Tsuyu. Now when it comes to Tsuyu and Mineta and the water situation, everything pretty much happens just like it does in canon. Now they would both ask Deku why he doesn't use that power of his, and Deku would say that he can't access it right now, as everybody would pretty much just be pretty terrified because all the villains are climbing on the boat at this point, and it's at this point that in a moment of desperation, Deku would be able to tap into Ultra Ego. As for a solid couple of like 10 seconds, Deku would quite literally grab both Tsuyu and Mineta and literally walk over the water. he would like run so fast that the water just pretty much gets turned into a big giant hurricane like tornado. As all of the villains in the water section would be taken out, Deku would return them both to Suyu as to land, as all of them would pretty much just be where the rest of the group who didn't get teleported away is at, and they would pretty much all just proceed to essentially get there and just be like, what happened? But this is when Deku would look towards Aizawa and blitz over there. See, 10 seconds is 10 seconds. He would blitz at Aizawa as he would throw a punch, being ready to end it all. Deku would just have like an expressionless face as he goes in and throws the punch, but quite literally a millisecond before Deku can connect with the Nomu, before he was able to destroy it, the Nomu quite literally just tanks the punch. And it's not because Deku's ultra ego isn't powerful enough. If that hit, the Nomu would have been dust, bro. I'm sorry. But he snapped out of it. Deku wasn't able to hold ultra ego for too long, as Deku's whole mind was still kind of conscious. Deku sort of has to lose it in order to use the power of ultra ego. That being said, this is when Deku would kind of just look towards the Nomu, as his eyes would widen and the Nomu would punch Deku right on the ribs, sending Deku flying, literally crashing into the rock section where Todoroki was at, as he would quite literally struggle to get up, and the Nomu would just proceed to continue bashing Aizawa's head in. This is when we would essentially have All Might appear on the scene, as he would end up saving Aizawa, as well as pretty much grabbing the Nomu and beginning to fight with it. In this version of events, Bakugo and Todoroki are pretty much getting distracted because, Bakugo is there, but he's not exactly going to be a great help against the Nomu, seeing as he's like a sort of explosion attack hero. So if he gets in near All Might, he might just doing some splash damage to him as well. Todoroki's being distracted by Deku trying to heal him up because, it is his classmate. And when Deku would open his eyes once again, he would see All Might getting battered and beaten. All Might would have just blood spewing out of his mouth as the Nomu would have quite literally punched All Might straight in the gut. Not only was All Might suplexed perfectly this time, but All Might was barely able to escape it with his life. And so, when All Might does this, he pretty much barely is able to hold his own against the Nomu. He still tries to go plus ultra, but the Nomu is just too much for All Might in this version of events. He has no type of backup. And so, we would then basically have Deku seeing this. In an instant, something would snap within Deku, as it's not ultra ego, but it's something else. A feeling would just go off inside of Deku, as Deku would let out a roar and he would go Super Saiyan 4, legendary Ultra Super Saiyan 2 times 3 to the 5th power of 37. Alright, that's exactly what would happen. As that's where we're gonna, just kidding, that's not at all. Alright, so look, yeah, Deku pretty much taps into, this his ki, because you can't have ultra ego without ki, and he would quite literally go over towards All Might, as he would pretty much appear there and just be like, All Might, you're not gonna, as he would pretty much just get hit by the Nomu. However, when he does, Deku would just stand there as he was able to tank the blow, and he would look up at the Nomu as he would smirk, and the Nomu would begin to just beat on Deku over and over and over until slightly Deku would realize what's going on. The Nomu is punching at Deku, and every time that the Nomu lands a punch, Deku is getting happy. Deku would smirk as immediately a gigantic amount of aura would just rush inside of Deku, and this time it would definitely be Ultra Ego, as Deku would smile, having the same look that Vegeta does when he activated Ultra Ego and fought against Granola, as we would then basically see Deku give the Nomu that same look, as the Nomu would continue to rush at Deku, but all of its instincts were telling it to go away. It can't disobey Shigaraki though, so it would pretty much stand there, and Deku would proceed to essentially smile as he would go over to the Nomu in an instant. Just matter of fact, not even in an instant. He would walk over towards it as the Nomu would just be standing there. And this is when Deku would extend his hand out as he would simply destroy completely the Nomu. It would be atomized as Deku would turn his attentions towards Shigaraki. This is when Shigaraki would look at Deku as he would just step back, falling onto the ground, as he would say, Kurogiri, let's get out of here. This is when Deku would look towards Shigaraki as he would say, oh no you don't, and he would quite literally blitz over to Shigaraki, as he would grab Kurogiri by the metal piece before he even gets to help Shigaraki out of there, and he would quite literally crush. He would crush the metal piece of Shigaraki, quite literally destroying Shigaraki. After this, we would essentially have Deku pretty much just looking towards Shigaraki as he would continue to take slow steps over to him. And this is when Shigaraki would be like, You're a monster. He would rush at Deku as he would touch him with all 5 fingers and just be like, checkmate. But he would realize, Deku, he's not decaying. His quirk, does it not work? Deku would look at Shigaraki with like this face of just disgust as he would look towards Shigaraki and say, that pitiful attack. This is when Deku would let out a massive amount of bloodlust, causing Shigaraki to quite literally fall into unconsciousness. After this, Deku would just look over at everything that he just did. As Deku would snap out of it, his hair would drop down to the ground. It would go back to being a green tint, and Deku would fall down to his knees. It's at this point that Deku would begin to breathe heavily as he would say, that took a lot out of me, way more than I thought. As he would just look around and just be like, oh, okay, definitely got to get better at using that power. As he would just look over towards All Might asking if he's okay, and All Might would just be like, this kid, he's incredible. Just thinking that he probably should have given the quirk of All for One, of One for All over to Deku instead of Mirio. Deku would pretty much just proceed to look around as it's at this point that the cleanup would happen and everybody would kind of just be given their 1 week break. Now, during that break, Deku would pretty much just use this time in order to essentially just meditate. Now, instead of doing meditation in which he pretty much just sits there and like tries to calm his mind, Deku would do this in order to pretty much reach a state which would allow Deku to clear his thoughts. It would allow Deku to not think of anything. Deku would close his eyes and just begin to pretty much think, visualize the power of Ultra Ego within him in the fountain of its endless aura. Deku would open his eyes once again, as for the first time ever, Deku was able to activate Ultra Instinct. This would be on the final day. I really just said Ultra Instinct. Oh no. People are about to crucify me down below in the comments. No, Deku would activate Ultra Ego. As before we continue with the story and you guys find out anything else, I need to tell you guys about a sponsor, Fandom. Fandom is an awesome anime merch apparel website which you guys can get to by clicking the links down below in my description. One of them will take you to My Hero Academia merch because I know a lot of my fans love that, and the other will take you to basically see the variety selection which they have. Up on screen right now, you guys should be seeing a bunch of choices that they have. They have My Hero, Naruto, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, One Piece, Dragon Ball, pretty much all the mainstream animes that you guys can think of. Fandom pretty much offers to you guys at a reasonable price, meaning that they're not giving it to you guys at the same price that you guys might find in like your stores that are nearby you. Of course, there might be a couple anime merches that, you know, might be a little cheaper, but look at the quality, man. Like, look at the quality. They fade, you know, they get ugly. But when it comes to Fandom, they have awesome quality merch that you guys can get at a reasonable price. Not only that, but guys, they're having a 50% sale on their store. Not only that, but using code ZETHER, you can even get an extra 5% off on all of their items actually. And I'm currently working to see if I can get you guys a 10% discount code, but not too sure if I'll be able to get that. So if I was you guys, I would definitely go check out Fandom now and use their 50% discount because that's not going to last forever. So if you guys like any of the designs that are up on screen right now, then please consider clicking on Fandom and at least checking out their merch store, seeing as it helps out the channel a ton. It's basically like if you guys were buying my merch, except it's whatever you guys want from whatever favorite anime you guys want. That being said, that's pretty much it for the sponsor. Let's get right back into the what if. Alright, so Deku, as I said, activated what's it called, Ultra Ego, and he basically proceeds to just look around as Deku this time doesn't lose it. This time Deku manages to stay inside of the state of Ultra Ego. And Deku would just smile. A big bright smile would appear on Deku's face as he just says, yes! This is when Deku would basically just be able to stay in it, as Deku would pretty much just start practicing his fighting moves. His ninjutsu, or no, not ninjutsu, but what's taiji? I don't know, man. He would just start practicing how to fight. You know what I mean? Not ninjutsu, because you know he doesn't have chakra. But yeah, he would pretty much just begin to do that. This is when Deku would finally realize what Ultra Ego is. It wasn't at all what he thought. It was pretty much just a state of, essentially, animalistic instincts and destruction. As Deku just starts to understand that that's all it is. It's nothing crazy that Deku's going to have to hold back, because Deku can always decide whether he wants to destroy something or not. And so, Deku would smile. But that is where I'm going to be. Psych, you thought. I baited you. That's not where we're going to be ending the video. Alright, look, we're going to keep going. So, Deku pretty much just ends up continuing to do this, as now Deku is now going to be able to tap into Ultra Ego for a certain amount of time every time. And for now, Deku doesn't know how many times a day Deku can tap into it, but from what he knows now is that he can use the power of Ultra Ego for an outstanding 5 minutes. Now, Deku, realizing this, would go back to school, where they would pretty much have all of the same events that happen in canon pretty much still happen up until when they arrive to the UA Sports Festival. Now, like I said, everything stays the same. Bakugo still talks smack. Everybody gets told about the UA Sports Festival. Bakugo still gives a speech because, you know, he was still... Actually, no, he doesn't, because Deku was the winner. Deku gives a pretty dope speech which inspires everybody, and they're all pretty much going to line up on the starting line of the race for the UA Sports Festival. Midnight would basically just be like, "Are you ready?" As everybody would get hype. People would be taking pictures of Midnight because y'all already know what's up. And Deku would pretty much just be sitting there looking, as he would just close his eyes, and in an instant, Deku would tap into the power of Ultra Ego. Deku would get a little bit of an ominous smile on his face, as Midnight would just pop the starting pistol, and Deku would blitz at the finish line, being there before anybody else, and being there before anybody had the chance to blink their eyes. Deku would win, as Nezu's jaw would just drop, and he would say, "I knew the boy had it in him." This is when All Might would just be like, "Alright, I guess I can retire as a symbol of peace. That kid is definitely not going to be able to be stopped." As it to this point, that the upperclassmen would just be like, "All right, that's not okay. This man is way too strong." Everybody would kind of just be thinking the same thoughts, as it's at this point that Deku would just be having a blast. Like, the man is smiling, thinking that he did it. As finally Bakugo and Todoroki would arrive, and when Bakugo passes Deku, he would kind of give him a shoulder bump as he would walk past him. This is when Deku would quite literally just smile, as he would be thinking that he got Bakugo to acknowledge him. Not just as some runt or a pebble, but as a worthy opponent. Maybe Deku can finally beat him. Deku would quite literally just be getting pretty happy, as it's to this point that everybody would be told about the cavalry battle. Now, the team that Deku ends up getting placed with is not actually going to be the same one that they had in canon. See, actually, no, yeah, they are going to be having the same team. Meihatsume, Tokiyami, and Uraraka. They're still going to be having that. Ida still is going to be on his, "I want to be strong without you, Midoriya. I can't rely on you all the time to save me." As Deku would just be like, "All right, bro, I get it. Do your thing, bro. Stay in your own lane." As of course, Ida would just be like, "Thanks." And after this, we would basically just have Deku proceeding to get into the same team. Now, if I really wanted to, I could say that this part of everything kind of went the same as in canon, but I'm not going to say that. See, Deku is still an Ultra Ego, and so Deku kind of just proceeds to use his aura to just blast people away from him, meaning not a single person is able to get anywhere near Deku, because remember, he has a full 5 minutes. Deku only used 1 second of his Ultra Ego before he deactivated it, and that means that Deku has a whole 4 minutes and 59 seconds of using it left. So Deku would definitely use it against the cavalry battle for a split short burst anytime that he needs it. He's not going to have it active at all times, but Todoroki would have definitely tried to rush at Deku and steal the first place headband. However, anytime that he did, Deku would use his aura to blow anybody away. And so if Todoroki got too close, he was afraid that he might get blown away off of his team and just lose. And so Todoroki kind of chilled out and went for other people, but Bakugo Bakugo was persistent. He kept shooting explosions, propelling himself over there, just being like, "Why won't you die?" As he would shoot explosions after explosions, and Deku would kind of just keep using his aura to keep Bakugo at bay. It's at this point that we would basically have Deku essentially just getting pretty happy at what's going on, and they would end up actually winning the cavalry battle. After this, we would then basically jump into the battles. And seeing as we're going to be jumping into the battles, this is when we're going to be having the same battles that transpired in canon. Deku versus Shinso. Now, I've been wanting to cover this battle ever since I started the video recording, alright? So, we're going to start off the story with Deku pretty much getting in the ring. Now, when Deku does this, keep in mind, Deku only has about 1 minute left of uses in Ultra Ego. And so, Deku decides that he's definitely going to make this quick. Deku would tap into it as Shinso would look at him and say, "Must be great to have such an amazing quirk." Deku would look at Shinso as he would say, "It is," being in like a cocky state because that's kind of what Ultra Ego does to him. And when he talks, that's at the same time that Midnight shoots a starting pistol. Deku would fall straight into Shinso's mind control ability, and Shinso would pretty much just smirk as Deku's body would just kind of like go limp, and Deku would just be standing there, similar to like in a lifeless state, as if he just like won an anime battle, and if he moves he's gonna hurt himself. But yeah, he would pretty much just be standing there like that as Shinso would smirk, thinking that this is it. It's at this point that Deku would quite literally just be standing there, and Deku's body would begin to quite literally, without Deku consciously moving itself, just walk over towards Shinso and pretty much aim his hand right at Shinso as he would proceed to quite literally almost erase him if it wasn't for the fact that Shinso deactivated his mind control. Picture this, you're in a fight. You're fighting against some kid with green hair, some little broccoli kid, you know what I'm saying? You get him with your quirk, you mind control him. You're thinking that you won, you know what I mean? Like, you're thinking you're about to show off in front of everybody, but out of nowhere, like a powerful aura just erupts off of him with no limitations, no breakers, no nothing. Deku used the entire power of Ultra Ego, and the sheer aura quite literally caused Shinso to fall on his knees. The man was not getting up. After that, everybody else feeling this aura would just start feeling very uneasy and terrified. They would be terrified of a hero feeling so much power in one place. This is when Deku would quite literally proceed to look at Shinso as he aims his hand at him, and before he kills the man, Shinso lets him free of his mind control as Deku snaps right out of it before he shoots at Shinso and destroys the ring. Now, after he does that, he would jump into the air. Actually, no, he would quite literally just be floating there as Shinso would fall down onto the ground, just like over hyperventilating, just like as Deku just looks at Shinso and says, what happened?" Shinso would just look at him with a terrified look as he would say, You monster." And after this, we would basically just have Deku being confused, as that is where we're going to be ending off. What if Deku had Ultra Ego? Now, guys, as I said in the beginning of the video, if you guys want to be having a part 2, not part 2, but a part 3 to this amazing series that is What If Deku Had Ultra Ego, then you guys are going to be having to smash 500 likes. As soon as you guys do that, I promise, guys, I will be out with part 2. If you guys don't hit the like goal, then I'm not dropping the video tomorrow, and I'll just take a day off. That being said, though, guys, I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope this lived up to some of your guys' standards. Things are only going to get better from here. I promise you guys a little bit of more story on the next part as well. But yeah, that being said, love each and every single one of you guys. As I said before, make sure to check out the anime merch shop down below if you want to support the channel, as well as consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to never miss all of my uploads, as well as part 3 to this amazing series. That being said, it has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.